disorientation, claustrophobia. We're talking horror writing today. We're talking breakthroughs on the first draft, and we're talking the best-selling horror novel out of Japan worldwide. You know the one, Ring. Welcome. I'm Asa Merritt. I wrote 6 sermons starring Stephanie Hsu. So glad to have you here. On this channel, I'm documenting my transition from screenwriting to fiction, and each week talk about writing updates, reading updates, and something I'm learning. So that's what we're going to do today. Writing updates. I'm moving forward with the short fiction program that I've developed for myself on this channel every Friday live. I'm writing flash fiction for submission for the intent to submit and publish. That's been going great. Last week, I should say this week we did ghost stories. Stay tuned. Next week, I want to say we might do drabbles. So that could be cool. Found a contest about ghost ships. We'll see. TBD. Anyway, that's going great. But the big breakthrough that I had this week was on my novella. So I started writing this horror novella, a really kind of straightforward story. It's survival horror. There's an outbreak. It starts at a cabin in the woods, family, 2 parents, a child, iconic kind of horror setup. Now, I put this away because I stopped being excited about it, which I think is a good reason to put something away. At the same time, I also really believe in finishing things, and so I'm so glad that I've pulled this back out again to finish it. And I think what has unlocked the piece right now is that I let myself do away with traditional formatting. Shun manuscript, Microsoft Word, double-space, da-da-da-da. I let that go and instead started formatting this the way I used to write when I was writing one-person plays back in New York. I was really inspired back then by the playwright Conor McPherson, this really tremendous, lyrical, poetic Irish playwright who managed to wed this kind of language-forward writing with down-to-earth characters and storytelling. He was a huge inspiration for me. And the way he formats his plays are very like line by line. I'll put it up on the screen. This is from his play Port Authority. And you can see that it's a monologue, right? So we have one actor up on stage delivering this, telling this story to us. And you can see from the way these sentences are constructed that he has tried to give each sentence a little bit of poetic potential. I've struggled in this new adventure into prose with confidence around writing sentences. I'm so accustomed to writing dialogue. And so just putting together prose has been a real challenge. And so I've kind of come back to this hybrid form where, yes, this is dialogue in the sense that it's a monologue, it's a play, it still is prose-like. And my novella, the horror novella, is told in the first person. And so a real kind of breakthrough this week was doing away with the prior drafts that were written in more traditional novel form. And I started writing like this. This is how I wrote my one-woman play, True Believer. And, that was almost 10 years ago. And it's a real kind of return to a type of writing that's really comfortable. And anyway, I'm really excited because I'm in business now. I'm in business on that project. Ring. Ring was written by Koji Suzuki, translated by Robert G. Romer and Glyn Wally. This book is excellent. I really enjoyed it. It definitely falls within bestseller land naturally, in the sense that the reading experience prioritizes page-turning suspense, not just ends of chapters, but ends of paragraphs come with these little hooks to try to keep turning you the pages. You can sort of see the kind of this writer set out to write something that would be sold in every airport in the world, and succeeded for good reason. But what I really liked about this, outside of its mastery of creating disorientation and claustrophobia, the 2 horror writing techniques I want to talk about today, it also really jammed hard with gender and sexuality in this late 90s kind of straight-coded way, but it was still really interesting and inspires me to continue writing about sex and sexuality in my own fiction, to kind of like let loose on that front. It was nice to read explicit attraction. You know, for example, Sadoko, who is the ghost in this story. If you've seen the movie, this is the woman who comes out of the well, out of the television, the hair. You know what I'm talking about. She is described in this novel as this sort of exquisitely beautiful woman with classic features, you know, kind of like a muñeca, like a doll, you know, like just this sort of traditional sense of feminine beauty. But she has male genitalia, and you know, on the surface, you can make a reading of this book wherein this intersex nature lends monstrosity to the character, that part of what others her and generates fear from her is their intersex nature. But at the same time, I was like into that and compelled, and it activated things in me that were not discussed. And I thought that that was a really rich rendering of a supernatural creature. And I feel inspired by that right now. So, anotado, keep that in mind moving forward. The day I start publishing these short stories and you can read them, maybe you'll see some of that at work. Now, I would be remiss to leave you without a writing tip. So I want to talk specifically about disorientation and claustrophobia in horror writing. We've come today to a cornfield. It's summer break. This is the Midwest edition of this channel. And I want to talk about these two horror writing techniques. So just to sort of articulate them before using specific examples, claustrophobia, right, is easy to articulate. The physical experience of being in a small space and how that's terrifying. Iconic examples of this, The Descent. This is an entire film that takes place within a cave system. You watch this, and if you're a horror writer, what comes to mind is, why aren't all movies just set in a cave system? Because you can take any other sort of terrifying story, place it there, and immediately you've created the experience of, I don't want to be here. I want to be out of this movie theater in the best way possible. Another iconic scene that comes to mind, Alien, when she's trapped in that metapod thing and has to get the alien out of her. The sense of small spaceness really contributes to that scene in iconic ways. So just tapping into visceral fears is a tool in your toolkit. I think Ring is centrally preoccupied with psychological horror, dread. There's all these themes about the coming doom of technology. There's family elements, but Suzuki, being the master that he is, employs this kind of claustrophobia or horror to his. So, for example, it's the end of the book, and they are pursuing the remains of Sadoko, the ghost, and they go under this house. And I want to read you this passage, and I just want you to imagine yourself in their shoes here. Okay, Ryu pulled off more boards until there was an opening large enough for a man to pass through. They both ducked through the hole in the wall and crawled to the rim of the well. The cabin was built on a grade, and they'd entered from the downhill end, so the further they went, the lower the floorboards got, creating a sense of something pressing down on them. Even though there should be plenty of air in the dark crawl space, Asakawa began to find it hard to breathe. The soil here was clammier than outside. Okay, did you feel that? So this is just this really cool example of, the whole situation is super scary already. They're on this clock. If you know the story, you watch a videotape in the Ring and you've got 7 days to live. The clock is ticking. We have Hitchcock's ticking bomb. Everything's already terrifying. And to sort of make that experience even more visceral and more rewarding as a reader, he's put us, not only does this dude have to go down into a well, that's scary. The well is under a house, under floorboards. And so basically here we just have the dial is being turned up and turned up and turned up, and all the ways that one can be scared at the same time is happening in this book. And I absolutely love it. The other thing I want to read out of here today is an example of disorientation. So claustrophobia, that one's really easy to kind of wrap your head around. Disorientation, we can all relate to this. We've all been out at night in the dark, not knowing our way. The lights have been out and we've had to try to find where we are in a room. This is visceral physical disorientation in that M. Night Shyamalan movie. What's it called? The Village. Blindness. Okay, this is like pure disorientation. Hush, that film by the guy who did Haunting of Hill House. The character is deaf. Visceral disorientation. Being in the dark. The Ring been dreaming. Ryu, normally not afraid of anything, was shaking through and through. He couldn't remember the dream, but the tautness of his body and his trembling bore witness to the terror of the dream. He couldn't breathe. He looked at the clock, 9:40. He couldn't immediately figure out the significance of the time. The lights were on, the overhead fluorescent bulb and the desk lamp in front of him, and there was plenty of light, but things still felt too dark. He felt an instinctual fear of the dark. His dream had been ruled by a darkness like no other. So we've got the sort of most obvious kinds of disorientation, being blind, not being able to hear. This is deeper. It's more psychological. It's connected not only to a wider fear of the dark, but the darkness of this dreams. He's waking up. He doesn't know where he is. He's afraid. And the fear comes from the disorientation. Good stuff, people. We're writing. If you made it this far, put a ghost in the comments, and I'll see you soon.